Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann, and today we are thrilled to welcome an iconic performer whose career has spanned 8 different decades. He sold over 45 million records, has recorded over 2,600 songs, has had 38 top 40 hits, has starred in many films, has 3 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's also a multi-published author and humanitarian. Please help us welcome the legendary Pat Boone. Pat, thanks so much for joining us today.
That is some incredible intro, isn't it? My wife used to kid me. She'd tell people, I feel like I'm married to triplets, and I wish 2 of them would get lost. I'm one of them.
Well, you've had such a great career, and we have so much to cover. But to start with, you were born in Florida, where Ike and I now live, and moved to Nashville at a very young age. Were your parents musically inclined as well?
Well, yes, but not in any professional way. We did a lot of singing, all of us, all the time in church, because we were members of a church who didn't have instrumental music. We didn't believe in it because it wasn't in the New Testament. So we all had a cappella singing, and like that Johnny Cash record, Daddy sang bass, Mama sang soprano, my sister sang alto, I sang lead, and my brother sang tenor. And so we sang in church continually, and then at family gatherings. And Mama had learned to play a ukulele, just a few chords on a ukulele, and she taught them to me. So when my brother, a year younger than I, at our family meetings, we would just come up with songs like, gonna take a sentimental journey, gonna set my mind at ease. And he could sing harmony, or he'd sing melody and I'd sing the harmony. So that was just a part of our growing up lives. And then around Nashville, a musical town, of course, I had plenty of opportunity to sing current pop songs, just a cappella. I became known in high school as Blue Moon Boone, because it was a song I could sing at the drop of a hat with no music. Blue moon, you saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. And the girls liked it, and the guys didn't mind it. So, so I just became known as Blue Moon Boone at our parties. And that led to singing around Nashville for no money, but at businessmen's meetings and ladies' Shakespeare clubs and stuff like that. And so I just drifted into singing, and I had a piano teacher who kept wanting me to practice piano, but I practiced basketball instead. And so she would accompany me whenever I got called, as I frequently did, to these meetings, which I did just for the fun of it, until it eventually led to a couple of talent contests nationally. And I'll quit. That's just answer to your question. I grew up singing in an amateur way, and of course dreaming of being a pop singer like Bing Crosby. But
Bing Crosby was one of your influences?
Oh, he was my main influence. He made it all seem so easy. Where the blue of the night meets the gold of the day, someone waits for me, blah, 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 blah. And, it just all seems so easy. And I just said, yeah, if I could be a pop singer like that, I'd love it. But I knew that it was not likely. I mean, everybody could sing in Nashville.
So, yeah. It's like everyone can act in Hollywood, of course, is the same thing, right?
Yeah. There was nothing different about it. And so it was just an idle dream.
Wow. Well, you're a descendant of another American icon, Daniel Boone. Now, what's
Yeah.
that like as a kid to be learning history about someone who's related to you, and how was the reaction from other kids?
Well, it was something I just took as a matter of fact. I mean, my dad, and then first of all, his father did all the genealogy and traced the lineage back to Daniel Boone. Well, it was a source of pride, but it was not. None of my high school friends were impressed.
Oh, well, we are.
Nobody was impressed that I was descended from a pioneer. It's like being descended from John Bunyan or Johnny Appleseed, or, he was a real man, and sure, I was descended, but who cared? I mean, he had helped create and settle Kentucky and down into Tennessee. So that was, if you're a historian, that mattered, but not to high school kids. So
Wow.
I was aware of it. And even today, I'm surprised when people seem surprised that I'm descended from Daniel Boone. I thought, well, that's my name. Why is that a surprise?
Well, while you were still in school, you became the host of Youth on Parade, which aired locally in Nashville. How did that come about? And what's it like for a teen to have his own show?
That was really unusual. I'm glad you brought it up. It was called oh God, what would we call it? Youth on Parade.
Right.
Now, that was because my high school principal took a fancy to me. He was not that much older than us. He was like 29 or 30, and he was our high school principal. And he heard me singing around town and singing at high school, appearances or events. And then there was a high school chorale that he put together, and he always picked me to sing the lead with the high school chorale. I thought of myself as a bass, but I had a range where I could just sing the lead. And so he thought that while I was in high school, it would be fun if I had a radio show. So he talked to the owner of WSIX, a big Clear Channel radio station there in Nashville. What about a teenage talent show? I've got a kid out here that could host it and sing a song every show, which would be once a week. Mm-hmm. And he had a piano player named Frank Bobo, who could Bobo, 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 Bobo. That was Frank Bobo. And he could play anything on any key. And he would accompany me on that show. And I guess we still have one or two shows somewhere of the Youth on Parade where the high school kid, Pat Boone, was hosting and then interviewing and introducing other high school talent from all over Nashville. And it became a popular show on Saturday afternoons, just Youth on Parade.
Wow.
Wow.
You also won many talent competitions in what was kind of like an American Idol style format where the viewers voted for their favorite artist. Did that start giving you some validation for yourself, and that maybe you had something going on there?
Yeah, because I love singing, and it was sort of irresistible for there to be talent shows, and for me not to want to go on and see how the other kids in the other high schools around Nashville, how they would feel about my singing. And the fact is that I usually came in second in those talent shows because there was, and it stood to reason. I understood it. There would, in those shows, would be somebody who could play great piano, and he'd had to practice a lot and learn how to do it. Somebody else could play a trumpet. Somebody else could tap dance. Somebody else could, a girl could sing operatically, she'd studied voice. And so when the votes came around, even if they did have sometimes an applause meter, but otherwise it was just adults probably as judges, and they would obviously always pick somebody who had practiced hard and then became good had some instrument, and I was just a guy who could sing a pop tune. So, uh,
Just
and in Nashville, that was a dime a dozen. And and so I would always come in second or third to a piano player or a tap dancer, and that was understandable. So the talent show that I won was East Nashville High. I was just about to graduate from high school. I was not quite 18, and there was a girl named Shirley McGoy. I'll never forget it. She was a great operatic singer, also still in her late teens, but obviously accomplished. And so I was in the talent show at East Nashville High, and I told my mom and dad who brought me over, said, look, I want to see where you park the car, because as soon as this is over, I know I'm not going to win it, but I'll head out and we'll get in the car and we'll try to beat the traffic away from the place. Well, so when I had sung an very unlikely medley, I couldn't decide whether to sing an up-tempo, upbeat song or a song that was very popular at that moment, a pop gospel song. Frankie Lane had a big hit with I Believe for Every Drop of Rain That Falls. And I thought I'd like to sing that song, but then maybe should I say, well, I know what I'll do. I put together the unlikely melody of, well, we ain't got a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we'll travel along, singing a song side by side. I believe for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. I just went into that other song. They weren't connected at all. But then I finished, I believe, or now I know why I believe. A big finish with the piano and nice applause, and I left the stage. And then Shirley McGoy was ready to go on. And I went out to the car to be ready to leave when I knew that she was going to win. But somebody came out to the back door of the school gymnasium. Pat Boone, where are you? I said, I'm over here. Come get back in here. You've won. What? I won? And I went back through the backstage, and Shirley McGoy was weeping, and my heart went out to her.
oh my.
So I went to the mic, and the people were still applauding, waiting for me to come back, wondering where I was. And I said, look, I appreciate this a lot. Thank you very much. But look, Shirley McGoy should go, because the prize was a trip to New York and an audition with Ted Mack and a national television show, the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. And I said, Shirley McGoy, she's more likely to get on than me on the Ted Mack Hour. So let Shirley go, and let her be the winner. And they said, no, we voted for you and you're the winner. You got to go. And I always felt bad about that, because I really felt Shirley McGoy should have represented Nashville on the Amateur Hour. But because I had been voted the winner for the first time, I had to go and represent Nashville. So when I auditioned, and to my amazement, they put me on the show. And then I sang, I believe for every drop of, I didn't do side by side first. I just sang, I believe. And I didn't know it, because I wouldn't know until the votes were all in cards and letters. But I just was relieved that I got on the show and represented Nashville successfully. And then I came home and I went out in the country immediately to lead singing in a gospel meeting that was going on in the afternoons and evenings for a week. And I was in a place called Beardstown, Tennessee, and I was staying with a farm family who didn't have a phone. I made no provision to be called if I won the Ted Mack Amateur. It didn't occur to me that I was going to win. And so on Thursday, of course, the cards and letters came pouring in, and I was at the farmer's house family having lunch with the preacher, because I was going to be leading singing in the gospel meetings that night. and a truck came rocking into the front yard, scattering chickens and animals out of the way. And a guy comes up on the porch and knocks on the screen door. Hey, is there a fella named Boone in there? Yeah, he's in here having his second helpings of everything. And because I was thin and energetic and I had a big appetite. He said, we got to get him to the switchboard over here in the next town because some guy named Oscar Schoonmaker is calling him from New York, has got to reach him. Really? I remembered meeting Oscar Schoonmaker. So I got in the truck and went over to the switchboard in the next town. And they at Schoonmaker, where are you? I said, I'm in Beardstown, Tennessee. Well, they don't have phones. I said, well, not everybody has phones. And there's a switchboard here. That's where I am. And he said, we got to get you back. This was Thursday afternoon. We got to get you back. You're the winner. You're going to be on Saturday. I'm the winner? Again, I was stunned to find out. And so I had to call somebody, take me back to Nashville. In the Nashville, Tennessee, and there's a picture of me packing to go back, homeboy, going back to New York to appear the second time on the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. I mean, this is a terrible, long-winded answer.
No, not at all.
All the unlikely seeming things. I went back, I won the second week, I won the third week, I made sure I was reachable. And then nothing came of it. I mean, I thought if I won 3 times on the Ted Mack Amateur Hour, somebody was going to be calling, wanting me to do something, but nothing came of it until a year later when I went back to compete with the other 3-time winners and was again winning. But I also went on the Arthur Godfrey Talent Scout show while I was in at CBS in New York. And won that night. But it was a professional show, and you can't be declared an amateur winner the Saturday after you've just been declared a professional winner. And so I blew a scholarship.
Oh, my.
Winning the Ted Mack Amateur Hour would have gotten me a $6,000 scholarship to finish college. And instead, I blew that by getting just 3 mornings a week on the Arthur Godfrey show at scale, which was, I think, $150.
Oh my gosh.
I thought, well, that was it. I had an opportunity to maybe go somewhere and at least have a scholarship, and I had blown it by being too opportunistic. But I was in New York anyway, staying in a seedy little hotel off Times Square. I couldn't go back to Denton, Texas. I had moved to Denton, where I was in college now, and so I just waited until I got on the Godfrey show, and then that blew the Ted Mack Hour, although I'd won 3 times, and they said I was winning national. I mean, against all the other 3-time winners. But now I was just back at North Texas, and I had blown the opportunity, I thought, till a year later. Randy Wood of Dot Records, an up-and-coming independent label outside Nashville, called me and said, I saw you on the Ted Mack show and the Arthur Godfrey show, and I like the way you sing. You want to make a record? Well, this was after all those other 2 things were over, and nothing had come of it, I thought. So I'd like to make a record, and we're expecting our first baby, Shirley and I. We married at 19. And now it's in school at North Texas. So I flew to Chicago, and he sent me the ticket, recorded 1 heart's not enough, baby. 2 hearts will make you feel crazy. 1 kiss will make you feel so nice. 2 kisses take you to paradise. 2 hearts, 2 kisses make 1 love. R&B. Well, I didn't know what R&B was, but I heard the record by the Charms on the Dutone label. And I tried to copy their excitement. It was just me as a solo, but background singers. Made a hit record. Well, we didn't know it was a hit yet. I recorded it till midnight that night in Chicago. Next day in the morning, Randy Wood wakes me up. We got a problem. What? He said, well, Frank Sinatra just recorded that song. Doris Day just recorded that song. A group called the Lancers and then a girls group called the DeCastro Sisters have all recorded that same song.
Oh, wow.
We got to put you on the plane and send you to some cities. Turned out to be 20 cities in 18 days to promote my record, because I was the only unknown who had recorded that song. But then Bill Randall, the nation's #1 DJ in Cleveland, had declared my record the record of that song. And because they called him the professor, and he knew more about rock and pop music, and rock was just coming on at that point. And he says, Pat Boone's is the record of that song. That's the one I'm playing. And so then the DJs all did the same thing around the country. And suddenly I had a million-selling hit record.
Amazing.
Out of the blue, after all of this hit and miss. Now I had a hit record, and of course, that was in March of '55. And come May of '55, I had to have a new follow-up record. So I recorded Fats Domino's Ain't That a Shame, and which immediately became a million seller. And for the next 4.5 years, I was never off the Billboard single chart for 4.5 years. It's the record I hold in the record business. Elton John came the closest. At one point, he was on the single chart for 157 weeks without being off contiguously. But my career seemed like such a series of accidents, of meaningless incidents. And then, but I gradually realized that God had his hand in it. that these things didn't just happen. There was a plan.
Well, on your website, you discuss a little bit of what you just mentioned about the covers that you did of the Black artists, which in reality was like relatively common back then. And you had a lot to do with helping introduce them to white audiences.
Yeah.
So reading about it, that decision was kind of pushed on you a little bit. So what was that discussion like, and what was the reception that you received from those artists?
Well, I'm so glad that's another whole but related topic, of course, because I didn't know anything about rhythm and blues.
Mm-hmm.
But rhythm and blues was called race music. It was all Black performers, Black radio stations, Black charts. And it was coming on strong on their own, becoming more and more popular because they had the outlets, their own charts and their own stations. But just at the moment, as I came along to make my first records, pop A&R people, producers and record companies were starting to pick up on some of those cute, hooky songs that were called race music, and we started to call it rock and roll, which was a phrase in many of those R&B records. We're going to rock and roll all night long, baby. And that could involve dancing or who knows what else, but we're going to rock and roll. And that phrase came out of rhythm and blues music, of course, the records that they were making, and the rock and roll idea, the label stuck. So suddenly I was becoming a rock and roll singer. And here was a guy who was a Bing Crosby fan. And where the blue of the night is the gold, all of a sudden, you made me cry when you said goodbye, ain't that a shame? And I was rocking it while Fats rolled it. His record, me cry when you said goodbye, ain't, I mean, there was a beat to it, but it was not rock. It was rolling along with a beat. But when I recorded his record, his song, mine was rock, and it was more staccato. You made me cry when you said, and I sounded almost angry. Ain't that a shame? And that was not the way Fats sang it, but mine sold 1.5 million. His had sold 150,000 at '1 R&B. And he said many times that I made more money from Pat Boone's record of my song than from my own record. Because he sold 10 times more records, but I was the writer and the publisher, and I got a bigger royalty on every one of Pat Boone's records of my song than I got from my own. And he sold 10 times more records. Same with Little Richard later on. So this was not, it was not strategized by anybody.
Mhm.
It just happened, and I happened at the right moment. And of course, when I met Elvis, he was my opening act in Cleveland when I was promoting my records, which in October of '55, and my third record was now becoming a million seller. He had one record on Sun Records, and it was a Bill Monroe bluegrass song, Blue Moon of Kentucky, Keep on Shining. And he tried to make that sound like it was rhythm and blues somehow, and it didn't quite work. But when he was backstage, when he came backstage at the sock hop in Cleveland, at a high school named Brooklyn High School. I don't know why Brooklyn High School in Cleveland, but it was. And so I met this young kid who'd come up from Shreveport. So Bill Randall could hear him. He'd heard RCA Victor was excited about this newcomer. He hadn't recorded anything yet for RCA, but he had done that one record. And I was backstage when he arrived. I came in from New Jersey, where Shirley and I were now waiting for our second child. But I flew into because Bill Randall asked me to come headline the sock hop. So in comes Elvis with a couple of his musicians to pantomime his record, as I was going to pantomime my records, which were 3 million sellers. Hi, I was Pat Boone. Nice to meet you. I said, Bill Randall thinks some big things may be ahead for you with RCA. Well, I don't know about that, but I hope so. And he just leaned back against the wall, and the buddies closed in around him, and I could tell he was through talking. So later, a couple of years later, I mean, he went on, and the kids didn't know who he was, and he sang "Blue Moon of Kentucky, Keep on Shining." And the kids, I could tell looking through the curtain backstage, they're looking, oh, he's cute, and he was. What's that he's singing? And they weren't taken with that song at that point. And when he finished, thank you very much, like do the other side of that record for you, hope you like it. And he sang, "That's all right, mama, that's all right with me." And that's an R&B song, and the kids loved that, and so did I. I was backstage, and I said, oh, that's what RCA Victor made him. That made me rather excited about him. Well, he was through. He said, thank you very much, and he left. And then I went on, I got all the screams that night following Elvis, because I had 3 songs that were already million seller hits. So later, when he and I were both renting homes in Bel Air and making movies side by side in separate sound stages at 20th Century Fox, I said, Elvis, that first night we met, you seemed so nervous and shy. He said, well, I didn't know how to talk to you. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you were a star. I said, a star? And I'd just been recording since March of that year. He said, yeah, but you had 3 hits and I didn't know how to talk to you. And
Wow.
that was evidence of what a nice young kid and inexperienced in many ways Elvis was, and polite. But even when I reached out and shook his hand, he didn't shake back. He let me shake his hand, but neither his dad or anybody had yet schooled him in how a guy shakes hands with other people. He was used to he was shy around in society, any kind of culture, any place where he didn't know who the people were. He was shy, but on stage with the kids screaming, that was his element. He was at home there. Well, we got to be good buddies, 2 boys from Tennessee, me from Nashville, him from Memphis. And we stayed in touch throughout his career, throughout his life after that.
Well, back. Oh, okay. No, go ahead.
But you had your own TV show also, the Pat Boone Chevy showroom. So how did that come about?
It just happened, like all these other things. They just happened. I mean, I was having hit records, and I had moved back to New Jersey so I could be in school and get my teacher's degree, because I thought that this is not going to last. It's a fluke. I'm having a couple of these hit records, but it's not going to last. And my second baby has just been born, and before I knew it, our third child was on its way. I was very, very fertile, and so was Shirley. And and so here I'm in college at North Texas, and and ABC decided that and maybe my agents had a lot to do with it as well, but somehow the idea came out for me to have my own network television show. It became the Pat Boone Chevy Show, Chevrolet on ABC Thursday nights. And I was the youngest guy ever to have at 21, and then 22 and 23, his own network television music variety show, and all the other performers coming on my show, including Fats Domino and Little Richard, but so many Black performers that I was thrilled to sing with. That I mean, Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole, Sammy Davis, Johnny Mathis. I mean, the Mills Brothers, they all came on my show and sang with me, and I was thrilled to sing with them. And then one day in my third season, Harry Belafonte called, and he was now the most popular performer in the world. You know, the Jamaican Farewell, and you know all of his great hit songs. And so I get a phone call at my office. It's Harry Belafonte. He says, "I've been watching your show. I like the way you treat your guests." And I knew he meant your Black guests. And they were coming on my show, and I was thrilled. And he said, "I like the way you treat your guests. Would you like me to come on and sing some with you?" I said, "Are you serious?" "Of course, yes." And so, you know, the old saying, I'll have my people call your people. I had people at that point. And so we had the next planning session with my team. It was getting toward the end of my third season, which was sometimes number one on Thursday nights. And I said, "You're not going to believe this, guys." Chevrolet and ABC and the agents and all that, producers. "Harry Belafonte is going to come on the show and sing with me." No, he's not. I said, "What do you mean?" And very sober looks. "Well, you know, we didn't want to tell you, but we were going to have to tell you the Chevrolet is having real problems with this show because of the number of Black artists we're having on."
Oh, wow.
And this was late 50s, 58, 59. And we're going to have to just thank him, but no, we can't have him come on. I said, wait a minute. You're telling me, I said, "Is this the Pat Boone Chevy Show?" "Yeah." "And Pat Boone's going to have to say no to Harry Belafonte because of this?" And I understand the problem. Don't get me wrong. I grew up in Nashville. I'm a son of the South. I know the problem, but I'm not going to perpetuate it. But yeah, but that's just the way it is. Chevrolet is going to cease being our sponsor because it's hurting them in their sales. And I said, "Well, then I'm going to have to ask you to get somebody else to take the show. I'm not going to continue doing a show with my name." And so they more sober looks. They said, "Well, can you guarantee if we have Elvis, not Elvis, if we have," they'd rather have Elvis, but if we have Harry Belafonte on, there'll be no any kind of civil rights statements. And I said, "Then, look, Harry and me singing together on my show is enough of a statement. And I'm sure he'll understand when I talk to him about, tell him that what we're facing is this problem, which he's combating himself." I'd like to say it happened, but it didn't, because he was booked for the rest of that season, and our shows were booked for the rest of that season.
Wow.
And I just left the show. I just told Chevrolet that I was going to do specials. If I could not have the guests, and I'd already had Ella and Nat Cole and Johnny Mathis and all these other great artists, but if I couldn't have Harry Belafonte, then I was not going to confront that problem anymore with a sponsor that couldn't take me there. And so I quit my own Chevy show and made TV specials after that for Coca-Cola and other sponsors that were less concerned about the civil rights aspects of it. And I never called Harry back, but I did talk to his daughter eventually when it was, I just kept putting off. I just never got around to calling Harry back and saying why we hadn't booked him on the show, except that, of course, I had already quit doing that show for that reason. Anyway, then I never talked about it, and hardly anybody ever knew about it till recently when, the guy that played such a big actor right now, who played Ray Charles.
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx. He
Yeah.
got out of an Escalade at the health club at dusk. I was getting ready to go in, and he was getting into the Escalade coming out, and I'm just passing by to go in. And this was, I don't know, a year ago. And he says, Pat Boone? Yeah. And he hops out. He says, Jamie Foxx. Says, hey, great to meet you. He said, let me ask you something. I've heard something. Is this true when you were doing your Chevy show and years ago in the 50s, and Harry Belafonte wanted to come in and you walked off your show because you couldn't have him? I said, yeah, but how did you know that? I don't talk about it. I don't know. I heard about it. And he says, nowadays, that's nothing. It's okay. Anybody would do that. But when was that? I said 1959. He says, can I give you a hug?
Oh, that's great.
And he gave me a hug, Jamie Foxx, because of what he'd heard about it. But I never talked about it. Why was I going to talk about it? I just changed from a half-hour show to specials, and with other sponsors like Coca-Cola and others that for whom that was not an insurmountable problem. But it was late 50s where it was still the problem.
Yeah. I mean, oh, wow. Well, during this time, you started making movies, and we'd like to discuss a couple. First, how did it come about that you started making movies to begin with? And was that something you had envisioned doing?
No, well, no, I never dreamed. I mean, but I had idle dreams about what Bing Crosby, he made movies, but it was, again, it's just something that fell on me because of the TV show, which was sometimes #1, and I was having hit record after hit record. And I wrote a book called Twixt 12 and 20 of advice for teens, but became a #1 nonfiction bestseller with alongside Kids Say the Darndest Things by Art Linkletter and Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, and my book Twixt 12 and 20 for kids. So I guess it was inevitable that 20th Century Fox asked if I would come out and do a screen test, and would I be interested in making a movie or two. And well, of course I was. And so I went out and did the screen test, and right away they wanted me to do a film which became Bernadine, and Johnny Mercer wrote the music for that film. Great songwriter who did songs for Bing. And he was now trying to write pseudo rock and roll songs for me, for my movie. And that song he wrote, Bernadine, became a million seller. And on the back of that, the B-side was a song that I had recorded, and so had Bing Crosby years before, called Love Letters in the Sand. And it was the B-side of Bernadine. Well, when the movie came out and the song with it and went to #1, and the DJs got tired of playing Bernadine, then they turned it over to what's on the other side, and they played Love Letters in the Sand for the first time. And the phones light up, and it went on to become the biggest selling record of my career. So I don't know, 5 million or so, and I've lost count. But all of this stuff just kept happening, and it was not anybody's master plan. The white bucks, I only wore white bucks because all the other kids were wearing white bucks, but I was the only guy to appear on television wearing white buck shoes, and just barely out of my own teens. I was 20, I think. And so these things just happened, one or the other. One thing led to the next.
The next film was April Love with Shirley Jones. Now, we've read so many articles about they making a huge deal, refusing to do a kissing scene. So, but
Yeah,
and then we heard you say that that wasn't true necessarily. So, what was that story?
that was certainly true. But that was it out of the blue for me. See, all these things were happening. Suddenly, I was making a movie with Shirley Jones. She had already done Oklahoma and not Sound of Music, Oklahoma, and some other big film. And she was becoming a star, and 20th was wanting her to be the next Marilyn Monroe or something. And now she's in a movie with me. Now, I was I had not I was not had no acting chops. I had no background or any training. And yeah, I was just trying to be as natural as I could be. And I was playing a kid out of Chicago who'd gotten into some trouble with the law and now been sent to the farm, his uncle's farm and aunt, to try to get him straightened out. And I was playing a guy who was a nice enough kid, just was headed in the wrong direction. And so now there was no kiss in the film, no in the script. But now the love affair is developing between me and the girl I've met on the adjacent farm, Shirley Jones. And we're doing a scene on a Ferris wheel at a county fair, and the song is playing, and now the director says, now when it gets down to the bottom, lean in and kiss Shirley Jones. I said, on the mouth? He said, he said, yes. I said, well, it's not in the script, Henry. Well, yeah, but you got to kiss the leading lady. And I said, but Henry, we're off camera, of course, just he and I. This may sound naive, and I know it is, but I haven't talked to my own wife, Shirley, about how she's going to feel if I come home saying I spent half a day kissing our friend Shirley Jones. I said, I'd like to at least, make her aware that this may happen because it hadn't come up yet. And he said, well, this is a logical place, but okay, we'll do it later in the film. No, I went home and I talked to Shirley Boone, and I said, what did it come up? She said, look, I'm ahead of you. You've got a 7-year deal with 20th Century Fox. I know there's going to be some kissing in some of these movies. I just want you to promise me one thing. I said, what? She said, you won't enjoy it. I said, okay, I won't enjoy it. And I went back to the studio, puckered up, ready to kiss Shirley Jones. But it was several days after that the 20th Century Fox was being flooded with telegrams and letters, phone calls from all over the country. Stick to your guns, boy. At last, it's somebody in the movies with morals. He cares more about his marriage than he does his and the head of the studio was really upset about it, Buddy Adler. And I was in his office saying, it's okay, I think I can kiss Shirley Jones. I've got permission from Shirley Boone. Well, of course you're going to. I've already notified the press that after talking to the director of the film, you have changed your mind and you are going to kiss Shirley Jones. You're under contract here, son. I said, Mr. Adler, I'm getting and you're getting, I'm sure, all this mail congratulating me, and the press has already printed it as if it came out in the Hollywood Press, Daily Variety, immediately. And it was printed that for religious reasons, supposedly. I said it wasn't religious reasons. I just wanted to stay married. And it said, but now it looks like that because of the press release you've made, that I changed my mind after talking to the director. I gave up my religious principle like that. And can I talk to the press again? Well, okay, but you're going to kiss the leading lady. I said, well, I've got to talk to the press first because I've got to correct this misimpression that this was a religious conviction, and then I gave it up after talking to the director. So it turned out that I didn't kiss Shirley Jones in the movie. And I saw about 20 years later, I'd almost sort of forgotten about that. I mean, I couldn't forget about it because for years after that, everywhere I went in other countries, is it true you won't kiss your leading lady? And I had to explain this whole thing. And so now I'm watching the movie some afternoon in Beverly Hills, and I'm enjoying seeing the movie April Love. And here suddenly this scene comes, and it's obvious the right moment to lean in and kiss this delectable young lady named Shirley Jones, and the girl that she's playing. And I back away and I'm saying, kiss her. Hey, what? You didn't? I almost had forgotten watching the movie that I never kissed her in the movie. Well, I kissed other leading ladies after that, but it had to come on sort of gradually. I kissed Barbara Eden in a movie called All Hands on Deck with Buddy Hackett and a bunch of others, Dennis O'Keefe. I kissed Diane Baker in Journey to the Center of the Earth, and eventually Anne Margaret in State Fair. And it was the first real movie kiss was with Anne Margaret. And I was singing a song Richard Rogers of Rodgers and Hammerstein had written for me for that movie, State Fair. And I was singing it, and Anne Margaret was doing tic-tac-toe on my bare chest as I sang, willing and eager and happy and hungry for you. And, it was a very erotic lyric for Richard Rogers to have written and for me to introduce in the film. But at that time, I didn't realize how erotic that scene looked. And I hadn't seen the film until I'm in London with Shirley and my oldest daughter, who was about 6 by then. And we're watching the film, and I see that with Anne Margaret, that scene, which was rather warm. If I do say, it was a real screen kiss. And little Cherry, my daughter, between me and Shirley in the theater, I hadn't seen the scene, and now I'm squirming. And so Cherry leans up and whispers something to her mom, my wife. And I didn't know what it was. So we got back to the hotel after that, and we put Cherry to bed. And I said, honey, what was that Cherry whispered to you during that kissing scene with Anne Margaret? She said, you're a very lucky man. She said, Mama, don't worry, he's just acting.
Oh, that's sweet.
And that got me off the hook. And so, but all of those things were just, they were not planned. And they were things, in some cases, I had to figure out how to handle. I mean, it was not commercial to be a pop actor who wouldn't kiss his leading lady. And that couldn't go on. So of course, but at least I got a chance to gradually work into it, and and not get criticized for it. And then by now my whole persona was well established, that I love my wife, I love my kids. But the wild thing about this, guys, is that I look back on it and I became a teen idol. I mean, a real hot teen idol, rivaling only Elvis. In some weeks in 1957, there was a worldwide polling going on about the most popular male recording artists, and I was number 1 and Elvis was number 2 in 1957. Now, of course, we were matching each other hit record for record on the charts at that time, and I had 41 chart records in the 50s. Elvis had 40. But I had a 6-month head start on my buddy Elvis. And we were very strong competitors, but friends as well. And all of that just happened to me in such a way that teenagers were still screaming to get at me and wanting my autograph. And yet they knew that I had a wife and 4 little girls by the time I graduated from college at Columbia. At 23, we had 4 daughters. And I was still a teen idol. I mean, but it looked like I was a teenager living a dream life. And I was barely out of my own teens, when I wrote a book of advice for teens called Twixt 12 and 20. But that was, I mean, Elvis and Tom Parker, they had to make sure that nobody even knew who Elvis was dating.
Right.
He didn't want Tom Parker convinced Elvis, you can't even let people know about Priscilla back at Graceland. The girls want to think you're available. Pat Boone's already taken. He's out of the picture as far as any kind of possible romance is concerned. But I was still singing the hits and singing romantic songs and making movies. And it was totally just miraculous. I knew that God had given me a platform and he expected me to use my platform in a responsible way.
Well, you mentioned Journey to the Center of the Earth, and I absolutely loved this movie as a kid. Such a fun film. How did you get involved in that one? And I also read that you initially didn't want to do it.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't, because I was gradually making the kind of films that I wanted to make, romantic musicals. And that's what Bing Crosby had done. And I could be typecast now as a young guy. It's sometimes, though, because I looked even younger than I was, I guess, at that point, not now, but then. And some movies that I wanted to make, the actresses would say, I can't be on the screen with him. He'll make me look old. older than him. I can't play even though I might be the same age as the actress. And that was even true with Anne Margaret. But the studio decided that they could put up with the fact that I looked like I might be as young as her or younger when we did our scenes. I was a very innocent, kind of naive farm boy, and she was already, a hip chick. And Bobby Darin was in that same film, and there could have been a romance between Bobby Darin and her character, Anne Margaret. But we made it. But I lost roles that I would like to have played because I looked younger than the actress. But and then too, my image, which was not, nobody created my image. It just was who I was. And I was known to be a church-going guy and married with a wife that I loved and kids and family, all that. Well, I wanted to do a film called, let's see, it was with Steve McQueen, a Navy film. Robert Wise, the great producer, director. And when I was proposed to play that part, which I'd love to have done, a very dramatic film, said, no, I don't need a religious guy, whatever he thought of me. I didn't fit his image for the Steve McQueen part. And why in the world?
The Sand Pebbles?
Sand Pebbles. And I was perfect for that. I'd already played a film with Barbara Eden in which I was a lieutenant in the Navy. And that's what this film called for, a lieutenant in the Navy. But Robert Wise said, no, not him. No, he's not right for the part because of my personal image. And so it was costing me in films and not, but in the other ways where I could perform and sing and television and all that, it was fine. And they came up with, after I got turned down for Sand Pebbles, another big successful film that came out, which the studio was very happy about. And of course, that was Journey to the Center of the Earth, come to think of it. It was after turning down Sand Pebbles, or being turned down by Sand Pebbles. So it was something I had to contend with, but I wasn't ever regretting my image because I didn't create my image. That's just who I was.
Your 90th birthday is coming up. So what events are we going to do for that? What events are you going to do that we can look forward to?
I'm trying not to make a big thing of it, publicly or professionally, but I am planning my 90th birthday for my family. And I can't give you much in the way of detail because I don't want to I'm trying not to attract a whole lot of publicity. I guess it's futile to think that there won't be some, but I'm trying to get my whole family, my 4 daughters, their husbands, my sons-in-law, my wife's 2 sisters who are still alive, and I have 2 sisters that are living, and they're all family, and I've got 16 grandkids and 17 great grandkids. So
Wow.
we're hoping to have a very big 2 or 3 day family event around my 90th birthday, because I'm never going to have that again. Sure. And so we're going to try to keep it as private and fair as possible, although I am getting so many requests, if not demands, from people that are so close to me as friends and almost family. Said, "Now look, I'm invited, aren't I? I'm not gonna..."
Yeah, you're in trouble.
So we are thinking of planning to rent a place we've located, and it has swimming pool and tennis court close to a golf course, and a place where we could perhaps have a show of some sort. I mean, invite people to come and for an hour or two, all these people that just want to be involved somehow in my 90th birthday, come and be in an audience affair in which our whole family will be involved, and people can ask questions, and we can sing together as a family. And I don't know, I haven't added them all up, but that's got to be at least 60 people or more. Just
take
so
that as a testament to the adoration people have for you.
well, I love that, and the fact that anybody might be interested in it, I do like, and the fact that I now have chart records. We didn't talk about that yet, but I've got 3 records on the country charts right now. And this again all happened. I dreamed I was having a dream of I was having a country hit, and I was experiencing the chagrin that I had been feeling for years about not being considered a country artist. I grew up in Nashville.
Sure.
I had 1 or 2 country hits, but I'm not thought of as a country artist. Whatever country events happen in Nashville, my hometown, I'm never invited, never included. And so all of a sudden I'm dreaming that I'm having a country hit. Now, dreams are funny. You can be enjoying this dream, people congratulating me, and I'm singing part of this country hit. And the thought flits in your consciousness, is this a dream or is this real? And right away the dream starts disappearing, and you try to hold on to it, but you can't. And you can't recall even some of that dream. But I came out of that dream with this verse: grits, grits, bestest food there is, country caviar, Tennessee foie gras, hey, grits, grits, bestest food there is, keep your fancy food, give me my grits. I came out of the dream with country caviar, Tennessee foie gras. Now, when did you ever hear those words in a country song? I have to give God credit. He gave it to me in the first verse, and I then went on and finished it, went to a place called Lebanon, Tennessee, outside Nashville, with a bunch of country artists like Ray Stevens, the Gatlin Brothers, Laurie Morgan, and even Roger Miller's son, Dean, singing with me on that song, and doing a big video of a grits line dance, which I knew nothing about. I'm trying to do it in the video, but it's become a huge line dance. And I understand that Beyonce now has a line dance, and she's trying to be a country artist, but I beat her to it this time. And so I've got a big grits line dance, and the song became a hit. And Roger Dean Miller gave me the greatest compliment. He said, "I believe my dad, Roger Miller, could have written that song. That sounds like a song Daddy would have written." Because it makes fun of escargot. Them snails have got to go. Pate, what is that anyway? The Gatlin brothers helped me. singing, "What's that smelly cheese? You can scrap that, please. Give me my grits." Now that became, it's a big country hit. And since then, I've recorded a remake with Crystal Gale of a big hit she did with Eddie Rabbitt called Just You and I. And that's a million seller, added to 25 other million selling country songs that I have recorded in my album called Pat Boone Country Jubilee. I thought I was going to have a copy of it here to show you, but that I wanted to talk about that. Plus, latest addition to my repertoire and on country radio right now was almost instantly added to the playlist because of the first two, Grits and Just You and I with Crystal Gale remake, which is on the country charts. Now, the new one, My Stupid Tattoo, which I've recorded, and it's on country radio now too. So all of a sudden, I'm an accepted country artist, and the album will have to be dealt with because there's never been an album like it, because country artists don't generally do each other's songs. But I have, along through the years, 70 years of recording and 2,700 songs, more than any other artist ever in history. And that'll never be challenged because it costs way too much to record today. But back then you could go in a studio and make a record for $150. Now, no more. And so 2,700 songs I've recorded, and I'm on gospel, what's it called? Not gospel gold, that's something else, but 50s gold on Sirius XM. I do every week, 8 times a week. 50s gold.
Where can people find the show? When do those air?
I'm sorry.
When do those air? The Sirius XM.
8 times a week. 8 times a week. You can just go to their app, as I always say on the show. Go to the app, and it'll tell you when each of the 8 appearances each week will air at the same show, and then it goes to the next and the next and the next. And I've started interviewing some performers like Anne Margaret came on because we did a record together in her latest album.
Right.
And then we had Jason Everly of the Everly Brothers, and he had not known that I had recorded several of his dad Everly's songs, and so I interviewed him, and we're going to be interviewing other artists who are going to come on my 50s Gold show because I was there. I had more hits in the 50s than any other artist, and some of them, thankfully, like Neil Sedaka and Little Anthony and others, are still around, and we can come on and we can talk together on that show, on the 50s Gold show. And it's on 8 times a week at various times and various days. But now the last thing is the latest book that I've written called If. And I've written a number of other books, and they were million sellers along the way. But this one, I thought I was going to have it to hold up, but I don't have a copy of it. But I'll get it to you. And it's just called If. And it's a very intriguing title, and it says on the cover, not religious. It's just because it's for people who, according to Barna, pollsters, and Gallup and the others, say that less than half of Americans today go to any church or synagogue or any place of worship, or even read the Bible, or if they pray, they're not sure anybody's listening. I mean, we can't say we're one nation under God anymore because less than half of America are in any way knowledgeable about the Bible or know very much about God. It's just being wiped out of our social life. And that's not the America that we inherited. I mean, we were always a Bible-believing nation, and we were built on Bible principles. And the founders were Bible-believing people. In fact, the reason I'm so happy about my country album is as I'm stating, our nation became a nation, not just a country, a nation, because our founders were farmers. They were country people. And they were living in the country, and they were living according to Bible principles. And I'm writing a song right now about that. I'm hoping it's a Dylan type song, trying to beat him to the punch on this one. I love him, of course. But anyway, with the book, If, I want you to know about, because I'm writing it for people who are not churchgoers, who are uh, not interested in buying a quote religious book. But this book is not, it's just about life or death and the choice every one of us is making right now about where we're going to spend eternity. And so it's a loving but pointed kind of a book. I'm caring about the people who may care at all about what I think or why I've had a blessed life like I have. Where did all those blessings come from, and why were you of all people blessed to do things you didn't even plan to do?
Well, on a personal note, you're talking about you writing songs. The one I love was always the one that you did for Exodus. We always, my family loved the movie. I love the movie. It still means a lot, especially today. So
Yeah.
that, on a personal note, that, I really was am still a huge fan of that.
Can I quickly tell you that
Of
story?
course.
Because it is another one of those things that just quote happened. I happened to have grown up in a family where we read the Bible cover to cover. And every time we read in what we call the Old Testament, we knew we were reading about our history. And we knew in the New Testament that we were reading about Jewish history as well as, because the whole Bible, which is most people have no idea of, from Genesis, the first verse is about Eden and Adam and Eve, to the book of Revelation, the end of the New Testament, what we call the New Testament. The whole Bible written by Jews, about Jews, for Jews, about things happened in a little country called Israel, from whom would come a savior for the world, a Jew, and that Gentiles could get in on it if they accepted this Jewish Messiah. That it's all Jewish, all of what we call Christianity. The Bible should not have been divided into Old and New Testament. It should have just been kept running right from Malachi and Micah and Jeremiah and Isaiah, right, talking about a coming Messiah. It could have just gone right into Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Jews who were writing for Jews. I don't know what that click is that keeps happening as I cross my hand to the right. Anyway, I had read and knew the whole story of the people of Israel. So when the movie Exodus came out with Paul Newman, I loved that movie. I loved the song. I wanted to sing it. I felt like I had to sing it, and there must be words to that melody. But the publisher told my manager there's not going to be any lyric because several writers, professional Jewish writers, had tried to come up with a lyric to that melody, but there are three people who have a right to veto any lyric. One is the composer, Ernest Gold, who wrote the melody, and the composer, and then the publisher that owns the song, Chapel Music, and then Otto Preminger, the director producer of the film. And whatever lyrics had been submitted were turned down by one or more of those three guys. So the publisher says, well, there's just not going to be a lyric. It'll just remain an instrumental theme. I couldn't accept it. So it was Christmas Eve in 1959, almost 1960. And I was sitting in the den playing the Ferrari Teicher instrumental, the piano duo, bum, 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 bum. And I was listening to it over and over, trying to get an idea for a lyric, not to write myself, but to submit to some other writer. But the concept, and I knew it'd be hard, must have been hard to compress 2,000, 3,000 years of history into that short melody. So Shirley was saying, Pat, please quit playing that record. Please help me get the presents under the tree so we can go to bed. It's Christmas Eve. I said, okay, honey, just one more time. Put the needle on. Bum, 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 bum. And words, this land is mine, came into my head. Bum, 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 bum. God gave this land to me. The words came. So take my hand and walk this land with me, this brave, this ancient land. When I when the morning sun reveals her hills and plains, I see a land where children can come free. I kept putting the needle down, and as the melody came, I would write the words. I was taking dictation. And when I finished, I turned it over, what I was writing, on the back of a Christmas card.
Uh,
And I wrote what became the second Jewish national anthem on the back of a Christmas card, celebrating the birth of the one who we recognize as the Jewish Messiah. Well, when I was at Yad Vashem later, a couple of years ago, Shaya Ben Yehuda, who was running the place, came over to me with tears in his eyes. I was not going through the Holocaust Museum again. I'd been through before, and everybody needs to go through at least once to put, to rest this lie that sometimes circulates that the Holocaust was some kind of exact. No, you cannot explain the horror of seeing what really happened. So I was out there when Shia came up to me, this big burly guy, and he had tears in his eyes. You don't know what those words you wrote to that song mean to us here in Israel. I said, I think I do. I've read the whole history of the people of Israel, and it's my history too. And I wear the Chai and the Magen David under this shirt. So I said, I know the history, and that's why I do know what this means to you. It means it to me too. He said, whenever I get discouraged, and I do plenty of times, I just get out your record and I play it, and I get revived. And he said, oh. we have a campaign underway, not publicly, but we want every Jewish kid in Israel to know those words that you wrote. They may not be able to sing the melody because it's a challenging enough melody, but we want them to know those words. And you must have written them on something. Would you be willing to let us have whatever you wrote those words on?
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
When you pass. And I said, you can have it now. I'll let you have it now, but you need to know I wrote those words on the back of a Christmas card. And he said, so much better. We know that evangelical Christians are our strongest supporters in the world. If it weren't for you guys, we would have trouble even existing now. So we'll gladly put that on the wall of the righteous Gentile, which is where it is now.
Wow.
Along with Oscar Schindler and Corrie ten Boom and the other Christians who supported Jews and saved Jewish lives during the Holocaust period. And so now my Christmas card that was sent to me by a Christian from New York, I have a copy of it myself, of course, but that card is on the wall of the righteous Gentile at Yad Vashem. Wow. So I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it.
Oh my gosh. Well, we have to mention this and ask you this question. You've been the recipient of several prestigious awards from Israel over the years. How much of an honor has that been for you, and to be recognized like that?
It is the greatest honor I can be given, because yes, I've been honored as a Christian, but too many Christians still don't recognize our Jewish heritage. And it is a vital part of our heritage. And that's why I wear this around my chain. And sometimes when I'm at the gym, this is all I have on. it's my Chai and my Magen David and on my, and people come and you, Pat Boone, are you Jewish? And that may be all I'm wearing. Yeah, I'm Jewish. You're Pat Boone, you're Jewish. I say, yeah, I'm adopted into the family of God's chosen people. But I'm an adopted Jew, yes. And I show them this. And that's what I want people to know. So when Alga Minor, which is the Jewish press, worldwide minor, gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award just about a year ago in New York. I mean, it was a very tearful thing for me, for them to recognize me and honor me for for helping bring knowledge to us, to my dear friends and brothers who are Jewish and Christians, and to know that we are family. We are family. That's the title of one of my albums, but it was about my rock and roll family, my rhythm blues family. But but we are family. Most of us don't know it. Too many of us don't know it. And so whenever and in whatever way I know that that's the reason God gave me the platform. I go back to the beginning when these things were happening to me in my life. And I knew I wasn't creating them. They were just falling on me. They were happening. And now this kind of an award, like from Allgemeiner and from the Jewish government who named me in an honorary capacity, the Christian ambassador of tourism, which is one of the major sources of revenue in Israel is tourism. And for me to be recognized that way by the Israeli government, and then at Yad Vashem and by Allgemeiner, is justification for all these incredible other blessings that I've had in my life. And I just want to make sure, as best I can, that I know where those blessings are coming from. And I want to know the one who's been blessing me all this time.
Well, it's much appreciated. And like I said, I read all that, and it meant a lot to me, and reading all that about you. And like you said, it's I've always been a huge fan, and that made me even more so. So,
well, thank you guys. I know this is a whale of a lot of time, and
no,
fortunately,
we had all the time in the world. We were just trying to be considerate of you. And like I said, this was such a treat for us, because we've been looking forward to you coming on for a while.
well, thank you so much, and I hope you will somebody will send you, if you don't have it, a copy of the book, and also the album, the latest album that I'm still hoping is going to cause me to get recognized, and possibly I'm not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and don't expect to be ever, because I had more rock hits than some that are in, but I committed the cardinal sins in their view of recording a lot of things that weren't rock and roll, and not living a rock and roll lifestyle by any means either.
You're a pioneer still in rock and roll, and that should be taken into account.
Yes. And as far as R&B is concerned, Jesse Jackson said recently, and maybe I should send you a copy of this album, which you probably don't have. It's called R&B Classics, We Are Family. And I record these great R&B classics, not just their songs, but their songs with them. New recordings of their songs with them, like Tears of a Clown with Smokey Robinson, Can't Help Myself with the Four Tops, We Are Family with Sister Sledge, Way of the World with Earth, Wind, and Fire, on and on. And finally, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag with James Brown. I went to Augusta to record my album, his song with him in his studio. And he met me at the out in front of his this city block that he owned, his businesses, and the radio station and the recording studio. And he met me in a three-piece brown suit, looking really, really handsome. And I got out of the car not knowing he was going to be dressed up. And there was footage on a local TV stations. I keep forgetting that somewhere, somebody, I'm sure, didn't destroy the tape of James Brown meeting me out in front of his place of business. And I got up with Ollie Brown, the big 6'4" record producer, who was a drummer, and who had been a drummer for the Rolling Stones sometimes, and I forget who all else, big stars. And we get out, and here's him in brown, and his brown three-piece brown suit, and his shiny brown boots with brass tips. And I hugged him. I'm just in a black T-shirt and jeans, and I hugged him, and I was surprised, his muscular body. And as we parted, he said, "What you weigh?" "What do I weigh?" I said, I weigh about 185. "That's what I weigh." I said, "Gee, you don't weigh 185. "Yeah, I do weigh 185, but I'm tight." I'm tight. And he was, I mean, he was, that suit was glued on him, and he was muscular. But I think it was, and then we went in and recorded Papa's Got a Brand New Bag together. And you hear him on my record of his song. Amazing. And when you put the tape on the machine, which had already been recorded, He stopped it after about 30 seconds, the engineer, and he said, "You got my groove. How you got my groove?" And Ollie Brown, the producer and virtually arranger, said, "Mr. Brown, from Detroit. I'm a drummer. And I learned to play every one of the drum licks on all your records when I was growing up. And I didn't find out till recently you had 2 drummers." He said, "I got 3 now. I got 3 drummers now." Well, I don't think he ever recorded anything after that. I think I may have gotten the last James Brown's recording on my record song, "We Are Family." So I want to make you all aware of that I'm not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but Jesse Jackson, when I was promoting that album with Santita Jackson on the Rainbow Coalition station in Chicago, and she interrupted the interview. I was talking about recording with James Brown and the Four Tops and Sam Moore. I do Soul Man with Sam Moore, and all these great songs with them. And she says to the engineer, "Is that who I think it is? Put him on." So it was her dad, Jesse Jackson. And he says, "I've been listening. We love Pat Boone here in Chicago. We loved him first for his father-in-law, Red Foley, the country artist who did our Negro spirituals. Then Pat Boone came along doing our R&B songs and having hits with him and bringing those artists on his TV show back then in the late 50s. He says, and I'm going to make a statement. This was Jesse Jackson. You could check with him if you want. He says, I think Pat Boone did more for race relations with his recording in the 50s than any other singer." This was Jesse Jackson, because I was bringing the music and the performers into my life and into my TV shows and into my recordings. And so even though I'm not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I'm in the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. And that's enough for me. So, but I appreciate the fact that Jesse Jackson said what he said, and that there is that recognition among the performers themselves, for that matter, that they recognize that I consider them and me family.
Oh, we do think you should be in there, but again, no. Again, it's really I can't even find the words to thank you so much for doing this. And
well, I'm happy to do it. As you can tell, I'm not bashful, and I talk too much, but I guess it's because
anytime you want to come back, you are more than welcome to.
Well, I just see, I know that although I'll be 90, that I'm not going to be around here a whole lot longer, and I would like people to know who I really am, who I was, and that's why I'm going to ask you for a tape of whatever you guys do, so I can have it for my great grandkids.
Oh, of course, we will definitely send this when we record.
Grandkids know who I am, but the great grandkids, they just know me as that old guy who likes to play with them. But I like my great grandkids and their kids to know who that old guy was.
We will 100% send the link as soon as I'm going to send it to your publicist as soon as we post it in a few weeks.
All right, thank you guys.
Well, again, I'll say this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Ike Eisenmann, and again, a very special thanks to Pat Boone. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.